Why did Ayanokoji decide to not grab any of the water they offered at the start of the Year 2 island exam in Classroom of the Elite? Since Ayanokoji is aiming to win, or at least place high in this island exam, it would make sense to grab the water they offered at the start to make it easier on him later on, but he decided against it. And even though he's the perfect human, Ayanokoji still needs water to survive. So for 2 weeks, he's going to have to figure it out. Of course, there are ways to get water. Like Ayanokoji mentioned, he can get water through rainwater or from the challenges hosted on the island, but there's a huge issue with that. Because rainwater is never guaranteed, it's hard to rely on that as a main source of water. And for the challenges, it'd wear down his stamina over time, especially when he's short on water. And the time the challenges take could prevent him from getting the Arrival Order award bonus from designated areas. But I don't think that's a huge problem given that Ayanokoji could place first in the challenges if he wanted and get the bonus points from that. However, there's one huge reason to not grabbing anything that would make a lot of sense as to why he didn't. And it's kind of the same reason he didn't join his study group mates when invited to on the island. And that's because lugging around a bunch of extra water everywhere would slow him down and hold him back. Why and how did Yuki end up as an otaku and Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian? She grew up bedridden in a noble household that she currently can't even take any of her nerdy merch back to. So it's obvious that there is nothing pushing her to become one growing up, but she still did for one simple reason. You'd think that after their parents' divorce, she'd actually have a reason to ignore anything related to anime completely, because with Kuze leaving, she was forced to become the heir to the Suo family, and that meant taking on the burden of all the work. And on top of that, she was always less talented than Kuze, so she would need to invest a lot more time than he did to meet the expectations of that title. It's simply a burden that would put an insane amount of stress on anybody, and she wouldn't have a lot of free time to enjoy anime. But despite all of that, it was somehow after their parents' divorce that she would actually get interested in anime and manga and become an otaku. And it's simply because Yuki's one of the best sisters in anime with one of the biggest hearts, even though we can all agree that she can be a little questionable at times. But she didn't want Kuze to have to feel guilty about the burden he put on her by leaving, so she studied up on how to be an adorable little sister for him through anime, and over time she became hooked.
Did you know that in Mushoku Tensei, Eris was originally supposed to marry Luke shortly after Rudius became Orsted's subordinate? Orsted revealed to him that the timeline they were living in wasn't the original one, and it was actually supposed to be very different, as Rudius was never meant to exist. This would result in Eris never meeting Rudius. Due to this, Eris would end up being one of Princess Ariel's guards, serving a role like Sylphie's in the current timeline. Here, she would meet Luke, and he would instantly fall in love with her because of her looks, fiery personality, and skill as a swordsman. His intense love for her would cause him to constantly pursue her, but Eris would have no interest in him, punching and shoving him away at every attempt. Despite this, Luke did not stop his pursuit, and his constant attempts would eventually soften Eris's heart, causing her to fall in love with him. From there, the two would become an affectionate couple that would go on to get married. Did you know that an Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian? Whenever Yuki calls Kuze her older brother, it's in the opposite language?
Ohayo, my oni-chan.
In the English dub of the show, whenever Yuki refers to Kuze as her older brother, she says it in Japanese, while in the subbed version, she says it in English. This contrast is most likely because of Yuki's playful and quirky personality, especially considering her otaku nature. Yuki always acts playfully around Kuze, and this switch is probably just another way for her to tease him, much like her other awkward or cringeworthy moments. This fun detail highlights Yuki's unpredictable nature and adds to her and Kuze's unique sibling relationship. Her switching languages also adds an interesting layer to their relationship, showing how she enjoys messing with him and keeping him on his toes. Do you know what Eris's sword rank was when she left Rudius in Mushoku Tensei? During their years of travels, Eris was relentlessly training with Rui Jurg to get stronger with the sword, but she never got an official title or rank that matched her skill, unlike Rudius, who could call himself a Saint-class mage. However, that would change once Eris left, as she went with Ghislaine to the Sword Sanctum to get proper training in the Sword God style. Once they got there, Eris made herself known, and she told the Sword God that she wanted to take down Orsted, and her ambitions actions made him take interest in her, but he also wanted to see if she had the talent to back it up. Because of that, he had two of his students challenge Eris in a duel, and they were both sword saints who knew the Sword of Light. However, Eris took down the first one with ease, and the outcome of the second duel wasn't so different either, as Eris was able to embarrass them in little to no time. The Sword God was impressed with her performance, so he dueled her himself, and when their fight started, Eris was instantly thrown out of the arena with the Sword God standing in her place, and that's when he announced that she would become a direct student of his, and that she was a sword saint.
Did you know that in Mushoku Tensei, the move Eris used at the end of Season 3, Episode 1 is insanely special? It's called the Sword of Light, and this isn't the first time we've actually seen it, as Ghislaine's used it before. The move is a special technique used by people that practice the Sword God style, and it is quite literally a perfect embodiment of the style's philosophy, and it's somewhat of a signature move. This is because the Sword God style operates under the belief that victory goes to he who moves first, and that they should defeat their enemy in a single blow, resulting in their style prioritizing speed as well as aggression. This is also why Eris is such a good fit for the style and quite literally a prodigy in it. And because the style's philosophy causes its users to prioritize speed, it makes sense that the signature move, the Sword of Light, puts all the power a user can muster into a single swing and attack the enemy with enough power that it can defeat them in a single blow. And masters of the move can actually have their sword reach the speed of light when performing the move, making the technique extremely hard to defend against with only one real countermeasure in place to defend against it. And it's also the reason many people consider the Sword God style the strongest sword style.
You know, it wouldn't have mattered if humans had the revival fluid before the first global petrification in Dr. Stone. Swallows were petrified a few days before humans, allowing for a brief time period where scientists were able to research and observe the petrified state of the birds with modern technology, and they could have come up with a revival fluid within that time, but it wouldn't have mattered if they did. Senku was able to figure out the revival fluid in the Stone Age, but it took him years. However, with the help of modern technology and the mass amount of humans researching the petrified swallows, there's reason to believe that at least one person across the globe could have figured out a way to undo the petrification within the short time period that they had, especially when researchers had already figured out that the stone from petrification reacted to nitric acid. But there are more issues humans would have to face if they wanted to prevent petrification. Humans would first have to figure out when the petrification was going to happen, so they would know when to use the revival fluid. They would then have to figure out a way for the fluid to hit them right as they were petrified. But even if they solved these problems, they would still be petrified. This is because Y-Man sent thousands of Medusas to activate at once, sending thousands of petrification waves. Did you know these 3 facts about Daiwa Scarlet and Uma Musume? First, her personality in the game and the anime is almost identical to her real-life counterpart. She is fiercely competitive and hates letting anyone get in front of her. This is most seen in her bickering with Vodka, which mirrors their real-life rivalry, where Scarlet won 3 times and Vodka twice. Second, in real life, she has many quirks that make her stand out among other horses. She gets jealous if her trainer pays attention to anyone else. In the stable, she always keeps her face toward the window, never exposing her back. She is also obsessed with proving she is #1 and will provoke her rivals in races just so she can prove it. Third, some believe Scarlet isn't a normal horse. This is because in real life, she runs with full power without thinking, which makes people describe her as more of a street racer who only cares about going fast and leaving others behind. Did you know that in Re:Zero, Subaru would have still ended up meeting a girl like Rem, even if he was never isekai'd? In a Q&A, the author of Re:Zero revealed that in a world where Subaru was never summoned, his father would actually scold him because of his shut-in behavior. And around the time Subaru was meant to graduate high school, he would eventually stop being such a shut-in. This development would cause Subaru to begin to rehabilitate and work with his dad at his workplace. And after a few years of working with his dad, Subaru would go off to university, where he would eventually graduate as a loner. After his graduation, Subaru would become a working adult and a productive member of society. While working, Subaru would meet a girl who would have a heart very similar to Rem's, and she would find his incompetence charming. The two of them would end up getting married, and they would have a very happy life together until Subaru would eventually be unalived. Did you know that in Mushoku Tensei, Rudius is actually able to cast Emperor-level spells? Typically, spells cast with an incantation would limit a spell to whatever level it normally is, as the caster would not be able to modify the spell without modifying the incantation. But because Rudius can cast spells silently, he is able to change the size and speed of the spell depending on how much mana he pours into each component of the spell. This can change the level of the spells he casts depending on how much mana he puts into the